Okay, now,
Thanks.
I've known Ken for a while. He's a longtime libertarian. He's a fellow physicist. He's a fellow computer jock. And an all-around good guy. And I hope you're going to talk some about your platform. And I'll tell you what, I especially like the way you presented the abortion issue, which is a touchy one. So maybe you'll make sure you go over that.
Good, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Lancaster County Libertarians for inviting me to be here tonight, and for you people taking your valuable time to come and listen to me speak. What I'd like to do is give my standard stump speech. This is what I would give to any kind of an audience, whether that's at a school, for local Republicans, for the PTA, League of Women Voters, whatever it is. And that takes about 10 or 15 minutes. Then after that, I want to talk about some things that are important to us as libertarians. And then after that, open it up for questions. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Good. All right, starting at the beginning, my name is Ken Krawchuk. I'm 60 years old. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia to be precise, living currently just north of Philadelphia in Abington Township. I'm still married to my first wife, Roberta, 37 years almost. And you know, our kids pick on us. We have three daughters. And they pick on us because they say, all our friends' parents are divorced, second marriages. What's wrong with you guys? I don't know, I guess it depends on how you look at it. We've been married for a long time. We have 2 grandchildren so far. I keep pushing the kids, saying, more grandkids, more grandkids. They're the best part of having kids in the first place. Professionally, I'm an information technology entrepreneur. I've been running my own computer consulting firm since the 80s. I hold 3 United States patents related to database theory, so if there are any geeks in the audience, maybe we could sit down afterwards and compare a few notes. I'm also a professional public speaker, and I've been a Toastmaster now for about 16 years. You know, it's funny being a professional public speaker because people actually pay you to speak, and I know a lot of people who pay me to shut up. So it's a good mix. I'm also an author. My first book just got released last year. Let me step over to the side. Atlas Snubbed. It's a parody sequel to Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. And it's interesting because I call this my platform novel. A lot of the things that I'm going to be doing are presented here as fiction. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So I'm a family man, businessman, inventor, author, public speaker, but most importantly, I'm a libertarian. I've been a registered libertarian since 1993. This will be my 9th run for public office. I ran for governor in 2002 against Ed Rendell and in 1998 against Tom Ridge. And both times I set a record number of vote and percentage for governor's office in Pennsylvania. And I'm back. Now, it's important that I'm a libertarian because we libertarians are different from the 2 old parties. We are the party of principle. Every law we support, every law we oppose can all be traced back to one central idea. The idea that your life is yours, that your property is yours, that you have the God-given, inalienable right to live your life your way without interference, provided only that you respect the rights and property of your neighbor. That's it. That's what it means to be a libertarian. Your life, your way, as long as you respect others to live their life their way.
I'm very sorry. I thought you were collecting empty things as you were walking away.
Oh, I thought you were.
No. I'm sorry, I don't. Thank you, though.
Have some more wine.
I am driving, unfortunately. And like I said, I just got a new car, so
More
maybe not.
windshields to be broken.
There you go.
Indeed, there are.
So we libertarians, our central philosophy, your life, your way. It's the golden rule on a political level. And the public has reacted very strongly to this message. Since our founding in 1971, we have grown to become the 3rd largest party, hands down, outnumbering all the other third parties rolled together. And that's true also in terms of elected and appointed officials. We have about 140, 150 nationwide, last number I saw, and of that, there are about 40 of those here in Pennsylvania. Again, outnumbering all the other third parties put together. I call us the 800-pound chihuahua. So we libertarians are big, and we're getting bigger. When I ran for office for governor back in 2002, we had about 35,000 registered libertarians in Pennsylvania. Last number I saw, it's about 45,000 registered libertarians. And as I mentioned earlier, the average age of libertarians is dropping. It's coming right around 30 years old now. And I credit a lot of that to the work of Ron Paul, what he did in the colleges. So there's a little bit about me. little bit about the Libertarian Party. Let me talk about what you can expect from a Libertarian governor. Well, first of all, obviously you're going to get somebody who's going to respect your right to live your life your way. But what does that translate into in terms of state issues? I've traveled the state a lot. I'm traveling the state again now. And I hear from voters all the time. And the three big issues that I hear about, let me just touch on each one briefly. Number one, taxes. Who thinks taxes are too low? Oh, can you hear me? Is there too much noise coming from the next room? Nobody thinks taxes are too low. In fact, the size of government here in Pennsylvania has been growing at more than 3 times the rate of inflation for over 50 years. Back in 2002, I said, it's been growing over 3 times the rate of inflation for the last 40 years. Now here I am again. It's over 50 years. And it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat in the office. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican in the office. It doesn't matter if we have the incredible inflation that we had during the Carter years or flat inflation, which I don't know if we ever had flat inflation. But you get the idea. It doesn't matter if it's a D or an R in there. The direction is always bigger, faster. When I'm governor of Pennsylvania, that trend will end. I have a great friend to help me with that. It's called the Pennsylvania Constitution. This outlines the powers that the governor has. And one of the ones that he has, the big one, is the power of the veto. I promise I will veto every single tax increase throughout my term. That means if they want to get a tax passed, they've got to have a supermajority, a 2/3 vote. And that's not all, because the governor also has the line item veto. So that means if there's some funding in there, like for example, say the state registry for guns, I could just cross out the funding. The milk marketing board, cross out the funding. NDAA compliance, cross out the funding. And again, it's going to take a supermajority to override my veto. That's going to at least slow them down. Taxes, that's the big thing. Now the reason why taxes are so high is because spending is so high. And the reason why spending is so high is because the government is spending a lot of money on things they shouldn't be spending at all. For example, giveaway programs. Do you know that right now about 80% of Pennsylvania's budget is dedicated to giveaway programs? Whether it's welfare, or education, or food stamps, or whatever it may be. 80%. And it's growing. 3.5 times the rate of inflation. What I would like to see over the next 4 years of my term is that I'm going to introduce a series of budgets that's going to reduce the Pennsylvania income tax to 0. So that's where I'm looking at in terms of taxes and spending. We're going to cut this back. We're going to reduce the size of government, end that growing trend. The second big issue I hear about all the time is crime. People are always worried about crime. But you know, there's an interesting statistic from the Commonwealth Foundation that would give us a clue to how we can attack that crime. They say that 95% of all crimes are committed by only 5% of the criminals. That means that if once we get a criminal in jail, if we keep the criminal in jail, we're guaranteed to reduce crime. One of the powers that I have as governor is power over the parole board. When I'm governor, I promise we will end parole for violent criminals. It's insane to let these guys out of prison, especially after we get them into prison through our convoluted criminal justice system. Since 95% of the crimes are only committed by 5% of the criminals, we're guaranteed to reduce crime. Get these guys off the street. Now sometimes when I say that, people say, Ken, what are you going to do? You're going to build new prisons? How are you going to keep all these guys in prison? It's already taken up 11% of the Pennsylvania state budget. You're going to make it 50%? No. Because there are a lot of people in prison right now who don't belong there. I'm talking about non-violent drug offenders. In fact, the last number I saw, 59.9% of the people in federal prisons were there for drug offenses. Again, I turned my job description. The governor has the power of the pardon. My first day in office, I promise I will pardon every single non-violent drug offender. Because it's insane to keep them in jail. Right now we have prison caps in the state. There are so many people in jail, and especially in Philadelphia. It's gotten to the point now with these caps that we're releasing murderers and rapists from our overcrowded prisons to make room for pot-smoking Grateful Dead fans. That's insane! And it costs almost $40,000 a year to keep each one of these pot smokers in jail. Do you want to pass a hat around later so we could pay for one of these pot smokers? No, 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 no. When I'm governor, these guys will have a get-out-of-jail-free card. Now, if they had dealt drugs to kids, or they were violent, or shot somebody or something like that, they're going to stay safely in prison. But if it's just some kid lighting up a doober, or somebody snorting a line, I'm going to get them out of prison. They need help, not incarceration. Big difference. Okay. That's all right. It's your house. You're allowed to kick us out. So that's how I would attack crime. We're going to get the people out of prison who don't belong there, and leave in there the people who do belong there. And it's not just pot smokers. If there's somebody who was thrown in jail because they didn't have some government piece of paper, like for example, maybe they were doing concealed carry without a concealed carry permit, if they are not harming anybody, again, they've got that get out of jail free card. So I think we can cut prison population roughly in half overnight.
What about swindlers and these other white collar
Well, that's
filters?
fraud.
Yeah.
They should be in prison.
Okay. You're saying non-violent. I mean, I guess you're saying non-violent.
Non-violent. Well,
yeah,
fraud
sorry.
is economic violence.
Yeah.
Right. So no, you have to actually have done somebody real damage, either physically, financially, or something like that. Because if there's not a real conviction for a real crime in front of a real judge, get out of jail free card.
Can't be a crime without a victim.
Can't be a crime without a victim. That's right. No victim, no crime. In fact, it says that on the jury nullification billboard that we have running this very second in Judiciary Square Metro Station, Washington, D.C. No victim, no crime. Good way of putting it. Nice, succinct statement.
Victimless crimes.
It's an oxymoron. Victimless crime. Okay, so there. Taxes, too high. I'm going to be able to cut them. Crime, too high. I'm going to be able to cut that too. And by the way, these are unilateral powers that I have as governor. I don't need the legislature to say, well, Ken, you have to compromise. No. Pardons, going to be right there. Parole, going to be eliminated. Taxes, vetoes, line item vetoes. I'm just going to be doing these things. This is what you get with a libertarian governor. Taxes, crime, and the third one, education. We libertarians care about education. In fact, we think education is too important to be left to the government. Right now, roughly 90%, 95% of all students in Pennsylvania all go to the same school system, the government school system. It's a virtual monopoly. And like all monopoly, costs are high, choice is low, and the quality is not the best. What I would like to do is work to end that monopoly, and I would like to see somebody brought in to introduce competition. Now, I wouldn't go coming up with new government schools or new charter schools or anything like that. I want to bring in somebody who's been ignored in the educational debate so far, the parents. Remember them? They're the ones who made the kids in the first place. What I would like to do is get them involved in their child's education. Specifically, what I would like to see happen is that the parents could choose any government school for their child, and the funding which would have gone to their local school will follow the child to the school of the parent's choice. That way, good schools get more funding and grow. Bad schools get less funding and are forced to close down. And when I say good and bad, I don't mean good and bad in the opinion of some unelected school board in Harrisburg. I'm not talking about some Common Core standards that they're forcing on us from out of state. I'm talking about the people who matter the most here. The opinion of the parents. If the parents think it's a good school, then that's it. So you see, for not spending another dime, we can improve education just by allowing parents to choose the school. Now, of course, transportation, they would have to cover that. So if somebody here wanted to send their kid to a school in Erie, they could do that, but again, they would have to cover the transportation costs. So for the same education dollar, we can improve education. Now, some people complain, oh, Ken, what are you going to do? You're going to close down my neighborhood school just because it's not as good? Well, yes and no. Once this neighborhood school gets closed down because they're not running things properly, this good school over here is going to have too many students. So what they can do is they can take over this closed school. Use the same techniques that they're running over there, which cause so many people to choose them, and now the neighborhood schools will improve too. Again, without spending another dime. That's my first idea about education. I call it low, medium, and high. That's low for the same education dollar. Second one is privatize the schools. Now, if we privatize the schools, the savings can be substantial. What I did just a couple weeks ago, I went on the web and I looked at local schools to see what they charged for tuition. And I was seeing numbers about $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a year. Some of the Catholic schools were even down around $2,000 a year. Of course, there are exclusive schools like the Friends School, which charge about $20,000 a year. But leaving off the exclusive schools, the average cost of education in southeastern Pennsylvania is about $9,000 a year. I took the Abington Township School District budget, that's just outside of Philadelphia, my own home school district. I took their budget and divided it by the number of students. Do you know how much it costs to educate one child at the government school in Abington?
12,000.
No, it should.
$32,000.
Well, then, average you two guys out, a little over $18,000 a kid, even though private education is $9,000. If the school board, instead of running their own Taj Mahal, our local school board, if they place the kids in the local schools, we could cut property taxes in half overnight and improve the quality of education, because now you're getting a private school education. And the parents, again, are the ones that are going to say, this school, that school, that's the one I'd like my kid to go to. You don't want your kid to pray in school? Fine. Pick a school where they don't pray. If you want the kid to pray in school? Fine. Pick a school that can pray, within the constraints of the Constitution, of course. So there's low, introduce competition by letting the parents choose. There's medium, by having the school boards not run their Taj Mahals and instead place kids privately, where we cut property taxes in half. And then there's high, which I call the great offer. The great offer is you will never have to pay property tax again if you educate your own children. It's as simple as that. Now, childless couples love that because they're not paying for somebody else's kid's education. Seniors love it because property tax is gone and they're not paying for a service they use directly. People who already send their kids to private school, they love it because right now they're paying twice. Once for the school and once through their taxes. And even people who have no kids, who have kids in the government schools, they like it too because they're going to get a better quality education than they would otherwise. So it's a win-win-win-win situation. The great offer. And think of it, right now, you're paying $18,000 a kid to get them through school, and you're paying it this year, and next year, and the year after that. Now, if you educated your own child, it's expensive. Education's expensive. What do we say, $9,000 a year? You may have to take out a second mortgage. But after a couple of years, that mortgage would be paid off and you'd be done. Maybe you'd be done when you're 35, 40, 50 years old. But now the way it is, you're still paying for that education when you're 45, 50, 60, 70, 80. Oops, I hit the ceiling. You'd be paying it forever. With the great offer,
Metaphorically as well, right?
with the great offer, we eliminate property taxes, better education, and you can really enjoy your golden years without being priced out of your own home. So there are my ideas for education. And they're the top three issues. There are many, many other issues, and I could go on all night, and there have been times when I have. I remember the last time I ran for governor, I was at the Southern Christian Ministries outside of Pittsburgh. 4 hours they kept me on stage. 4 hours. It's got to be a record for me. Ordinarily at this point when I'm talking to non-libertarian groups, I'd open it up for questions, saying, they're my top three issues. Let me hear what you guys are thinking now. This is where I get my input. But let me talk about things that are important to us as libertarians. Because this is the beginning of the next campaign cycle. And what I'd like to do is just lay out for you what it's going to look like and show you how you guys can fit in, guys and ladies. I'm from Philadelphia. I call everybody guys. What can I say? North Philly, that's the way we do it. Libertarian Party. We're going to be running candidates. And the way that the election calendar is going to stack up is it's going to be divided into three pieces. There's the piece we're in now, which is the pre-nomination phase. Right now, I'm traveling the state, talking to libertarians, telling them just what I'm telling you here tonight, practicing my stump speech before I get out on the road with it, also fielding your questions, which helps improve myself and my answers, and getting your opinions of them. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm seeking the nomination. That will be decided on February 22nd in Bethlehem at our state party convention. Last I heard, there were 2 other people thinking of running for governor. One of them, you might even know her, Betsy Summers. Yeah, Betsy's a great
There's
lady.
your running mate.
The one that runs for everything.
She ran for U.S. Senate twice. She is the second highest Libertarian vote getter in history. She's number 2 and number 5. That's how I look. She was thinking of running, and before I announced, I called her up. I said, "Betsy, I hear you're thinking of running for governor." She says, "Yeah, I was thinking about it. You know, there's nobody else really doing it." I said, "Well, you know, I'm thinking of running again." "Thank God," she said. "'Cause I don't want to do it."
Yeah.
She was only doing it because nobody had stepped up. So, and that's when I said the same thing that Sean just said.
Yeah.
Would you think about running for lieutenant governor? Because all things equal, with a woman on the ballot,
Yeah.
a woman gets more votes than a man.
Yeah.
It's just a fact of life. So with the 2 of us together, might be pretty good.
Good team.
Yep. There's another guy thinking of running from Philadelphia. His name is Steve Miller. He's a comedian, and he just ran for one of the judgeships in Philadelphia. I should really get that name down. It's like similar to Common Pleas, but Philadelphia, they got different names for everything. So he's been around the block, politically speaking, but right now he's not traveling the state. So when we get to the convention, you know, we're going to be old buddies by then. "Hey, Ken," I'll say, "Hey, you going to vote for me? You going to vote for me?" Steve Miller, well, we'll see. I can't say anything nasty about Steve. He's pretty good. Plus, he's pretty funny. So that's the first phase of the campaign. But it's not just governor and lieutenant governor. It's also state rep and state senate. That's all that's running next year. There's no school boards, there's no town councils, no sheriffs, no county commissioners, nothing like that. All we have is governor and lieutenant governor statewide. That's it. State rep and state senate. One of the main reasons I'm here tonight is to find out who in Lancaster County is planning on running for state representative or state senate. Now, Roy's already touched on this because you've got Brubaker retiring. This is a golden opportunity. Now is the time you should be thinking about it, because after the convention, we'll be getting to the next phase, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you should be thinking about it now, saying, can I do this? Should I do this? Start holding meetings. This is the first, I'm hoping, of monthly Lancaster County, I was in Chester County the other night, Lancaster County meetings, and you can say, I'm going to run. Now, I know Sean has run a couple of times for state rep.
No.
No?
So judge of elections, or no, I'm sorry, county, or district justice.
There you go. All right. You've run before. It's an easy thing to do. So you got somebody here sitting at the table who already knows the details on how to do this.
Yeah, I know how to run. Just keep running and running and running. They give you some water and keep going.
One of the best things about running
Experience.
is that once you get on the ballot, newspapers call you up and they ask you your opinion, and they actually write it. And sometimes they get it a little bit wrong, but the point is, you're getting free media. You're talking about how can we reach out, how can we get more people at these meetings? The best way to do it is to run a candidate. Candidates get people going. Now, I don't mean this in a, pat myself on the back. How many of you are here tonight just because I'm here?
Kind of, sort of.
See? Candidates do this. You can have your own candidates. I was just up in Schuylkill County, I guess it was 3 weeks ago now. They got a guy elected to one of the local town councils and another guy elected as inspector of elections. These guys are ready to take on the world. Their meetings, it's twice the size of this, and they're growing because they've got a success to count upon. They got candidates. They got new candidates who are going to be running next year. Nothing invigorates a county party more than running candidates. Don, you're going to run. Scott, you're going to run.
As much as I would like to, that's not really practical.
Well, it could be, because
No, it's not.
I have some shadowy things in my past. For example, I was in high school in the late 60s, college in the early 70s. I was right there in that drug culture. And people say, oh, you smoke pot? It's like, well, yeah, I smoked pot. And I inhaled. And I held it.
Right.
But my life would have been ruined if I had been caught. Because back then, they were throwing people in jail 20 years for possession of pot. So we got to end this crazy drug war. But that's what I always do. I always take it and I turn it around, saying, no, this is a character building thing. This is what's wrong with the government. This is how I managed to get around it. My poor brother, he had Hodgkin's disease, a form of cancer. And for the chemotherapy, the doctor said, best thing you can do
Go get
is
weed.
smoke some pot. The drug laws made my sick brother a criminal just because he's trying to get better.
Freedom to self-medicate.
Right. You could just take these things and turn them around and ask people, do you want to persecute sick people? Anyway, find a couple people. If it's just one, just two, get your name on the petition. I get ahead of myself. All right. Let me checkpoint. Phase 1, identifying the candidates. And I think we already got a couple identified here. After the convention, this is where the nominations occur, at the state party convention. Once the nomination's there, the next phase is the middle phase, which is not much fun. Roy's already talked about this. That's when we collect signatures to get on the ballot. Now, because of we don't have a Voters' Choice Act yet, there's a lot of signatures that need to be collected. Back in 2002, I needed 21,000 signatures to get on the ballot. Ed Rendell needed 2,000. I need more than 10 times as many. This year, it's not quite so bad. It's still awful. 16,500, I think, is right around there is what the number's going to be.
So we need
about
20,000 already, so they don't challenge it.
About 30,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still,
A lot. In 2002, my campaign collected 32,500 signatures. So essentially, we got to redo everything we did back in 2002.
now, what do you think the probability is they'll do exactly what they did before with the challenges? Like
We're counting
Roughly
on them challenging us
100%.
again.
Yeah.
And we have a plan in place on how to get around that. I've already been talking to paid petitioners, and I've already set up the deal with them that they only get 25 cents a signature.
Jay Russell.
Usually pay them about $1, $2 a piece.
Jay Russell's going to be not
Yeah,
happy.
among others. But what we're going to do, though, is have them, if they'll get 25 cents a signature, which is cheap, very, very low, unless it has next to it the number from the State Registry of Electors, the SURE database. That means we know that the signature is good. So for every good signature, they get $1. And if they fill up an entire sheet, they get bonuses and
That's
things
better.
like that.
That's
Yes,
a good idea.
much better.
That's a
You
good
gonna
idea.
make them check it in the database?
Yes.
And write the number in.
Yes. That way we don't have to do it. That way we pre-challenge ourselves.
So what are they going to do if they're down in the courthouse getting signatures? They've got to go get a list. I mean, it's one thing to be a street list within your area for your street.
Nope.
Okay.
Back at the shop. You get the signatures. You go back to the shop, and we have online right now the entire state registry, the whole thing. So you could sit down, look, House Sean, Columbia. Take a look. You even see a picture of the guy's signature, and you can compare it against what you got there. And you can say, yep, and you write down the SURE number. So that way we have it, and we will know what we've got.
But if I sign Sean P. versus Sean House, or I mean,
We'll know.
Is somebody making the Republicans aware of that? That we're gonna assure the signatures?
No,
It wouldn't
because
be a bad idea to leak that out to the Republicans.
yeah,
well, all this,
Won't make any
I'm taking
difference
video
up
of
to
this,
1
and I've said this at other counties, so all this is out on the web. And I'm sure they're looking over my shoulder, because
they're scared.
there was a study, a poll conducted by Corbett, and this is maybe about 4 months ago now, and he found that if there's a Libertarian in the race next year, he loses. And if there's not, he wins. So, you're right, they're watching what's going on here today. But you know, we thought, Dave John had the original idea from Delaware County, he's the chair of Delaware County, brilliant man. He put the idea in my head, and what I did is I took it a little further. I went to Corbett, and I said, listen, we saw a poll, and I'll tell you what, I will withdraw from the race, and I'll convince Libertarians not to run a governor candidate if you pass the Voters' Choice Act. He went away. 2 weeks later, he came out, well, Mike Fulmer, the prime sponsor, Senator Fulmer, prime sponsor of the bill, when I told him the idea, he shaking me by both shoulders and says, this can work, this can work. But after Corbett got it, he's like, nah, go ahead, I don't care. 2 days later, I announced. And now I'm traveling the state. We're turning up the heat. The heat's going to get a little hotter, too, because I'm going to the Democrats. Who heard what happened in Virginia last month? The Libertarian candidate for governor in Virginia was being bankrolled by the Democrats.
Right.
We have already approached the Democrats. I'm expecting
That's hilarious.
beaucoup help from the Democrats.
The Democrats are crazy. They should want the Republicans to stick around.
And I'm making them the same offer. I will accept your money if you get the Voters' Choice Act passed. Is it going to work? I don't know. All I know is that we libertarians have political capital.
You have the challenge.
We're part of the game.
Yeah.
Just as we were saying earlier, you got to get out there. Every time you see an opportunity, something you don't like, you rub their noses in it. But I took a step back. Let's go back to the campaign. First part, the nominations, finding out who's running. We already talked about that. Second part, getting on the ballot, collecting the signatures. We talked about half of that because we may not need paid petitioners at all. When you go back to your jobs, those of you who still have jobs, unlike the lucky retired people, tell your boss that on May 20th you're not going to be in work because that's primary day.
That's my anniversary.
Happy anniversary!
Yeah, the real boss might have a problem.
Oh, there you go.
Do it in the morning.
But she can
Get
come
her
with
to
you
work the polling place with you.
because what we
You
did.
work at
Well, she's
I-
backslidden into Republicanism. I'm still praying for her. Sorry, Ken. go ahead.
It's all right. Good luck. Because it's
Make
personally my priorities are family, job, then politics. Always the family comes first. And if when you decide you're going to run for public office, remember that. Job. It doesn't do any good if you beat back a tax increase and you get fired. So put politics third. But what we're going to do, back in 1994, my first race, I had this interesting idea. It's tough getting signatures. I don't want to go door to door. I don't want to go to parades and bother people who are out there to have a good time. Instead, what I did is I got myself a handful of volunteers, maybe 10, and I put them at the polling places on primary day.
You know they're
And
right.
as people are coming out the door, you know when you go in Pennsylvania, people are always like handing you stuff. You don't compete with those people. You wait till they come out the door. Nobody's talking to them on the way out. You go up with your petition and say, "Excuse me, would you like to support democracy in your neighborhood? Sign a petition to get our candidates on the ballot." Just trying to get a friend on the ballot. In my experience, about 1/3 to 1/2 of the people will sign. That day in 1994, with just not even a dozen of us out there collecting signatures, we collected over 1,000 signatures in one day. State rep, you only need 300 signatures.
They're all good.
Plus, and you know they're good. There could be little mistakes like missing a middle initial or something like that, but you know they're good. So that's what we're focusing on. We did this in 2002, and we collected 11,000 signatures in one day. And I blame myself because I didn't have it organized well enough. This year, we're aiming to get everything done on that one day. We're going to take the entire state party, and we're going to have everybody at the polling places on primary day. And with luck, we'll collect all 30,000. It just has to be 3 times as large as the last one we did. And that shouldn't be so tough. So that's it. We start collecting signatures on March 12th, which is just a couple weeks after the nominations. We've got to know whose name to put on the petitions. And we have until August 1st, till the balmy days of August, to collect these signatures.
Boy, that flies by quick.
It does. But we should be done in May, with luck. Then the third part of the campaign is the fun part. Because once you're on the ballot, you're legitimate. Everybody knows you're legitimate. That's when the questionnaires start coming in from the Pennsylvania Economy League, from the League of Women Voters, from
GOA, NRA.
Yeah, NRA. It's amazing. Last time, I had stacks and stacks and stacks of them. Fortunately, a lot of the questions are the same, so you can cut and paste, just drop them in there. But they send these things out to their membership. Then the invites come to the debates. Within a week of me getting on the ballot last time, I was invited to 4 statewide debates. First 2 were broadcast nationally, and the other 2 were broadcast statewide. You can't buy that kind of coverage. Will you stand up there and you tell people, your life, your way?
Rip.
These other candidates will be saying, your life, their way. You don't want to live your life their way. They have plans for your money, for their goals. I have plans for your money. You get to keep your money. How's that? And you get to contrast yourself against them. In fact, after the first debate last year, Ed Rendell's on the phone, cell phone, talking. And he leans over and says, "Hey, it's my son Jesse. He says he's voting for Ken." You can't. It was next day. It was in all the papers. You can't buy this kind of coverage. This is what happens when you get on the ballot. So there are the 3 phases. But what we need, candidates. So you're going to be meeting next month, same night. What's this? This is the 3rd Wednesday. Next month, 3rd Wednesday of the month. Right here.
No, might as well meet.
Somebody nod your head, guys.
Might as well meet in Lancaster. Move downtown Lancaster, man.
We downtown Lancaster.
Wherever it's going to be.
Sure.
How are the drinks down there?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I live at the long end of the 400 block. The first building in the 400 block is the Belvedere.
And the more candidates we have, the better, because our petitions, we put all our candidates on one petition. So if you as a state rep candidate get a signature, it's going to count for your congressional candidate. It's going to count for your state senate candidate. It's going to count for governor and lieutenant governor. Everybody's going to benefit from that one signature. I would like to see if we can do it. There are 203 state representative seats open this year. I'd like to see a Libertarian in all 203 of them. There are 25 state senators up. I would like to see a Libertarian in all those.
And I don't know the exact statistics, but something like half of the races for state house seats and state senate seats, there's only one candidate.
38%, last numbers.
38%.
38% of the races are uncontested. That means you're going to take something that wasn't even a horse race, and you're going to turn it into news.
And a lot of those people are not used to campaigning. They just get in there automatically. If they get competition, they aren't going to know what to do about it.
Yep. Now, a lot of people, when I say you're going to run for office, they kind of clam up. Because I've never seen a Seinfeld episode, but I heard that they had an episode there where they looked at the top fears. And the biggest fear that most people have, number one, is public speaking. And the fear of death is like number 4. That means people would rather be in the box than out there giving the eulogy. So you're going to be out in public discussing these issues. And we were talking earlier that we have the best product on the planet. It's called liberty, freedom. But if you can't communicate that, that message is useless. And there's one place where you can learn to communicate: Toastmasters International. How many people have heard of Toastmasters? I've been a Toastmaster now for 15 years, 16 years. Changed my life. Turned me into a quiet little geek in the corner to somebody who's standing up here, been on national television more times than I can count. You practice answering little short, cold questions. You practice giving prepared speeches. You practice using gestures, vocal variety, and things like that. And it's all done in a very positive manner. So people aren't going to say, "Oh, Ken, that speech sucked." It's going to be more like, "Well, Ken, the speech was pretty good, but it would have been more effective if you hadn't fainted in the middle of it." There are Toastmasters clubs all over the world. There are 250,000 members worldwide, over 12,000 clubs last I saw. Guaranteed there's some around here. In fact, there's one here in Ephrata.
There is.
And if you mention my name when you go there, they'll throw you out there. No. Because I'm very well known in Toastmasters circles in Pennsylvania, New Jersey area. So I would check it out. Toastmasters.org. Type in your zip code. They'll tell you where a club near you is. I can't say enough good things about Toastmasters. Taught me not only how to speak in public, but also leadership skills. How to run a meeting, how to put together an agenda, how to motivate volunteers. Because when you're doing a volunteer campaign like this, there's no paycheck that I can pull. I can't control your raise. All I can do is try to motivate you. Say, think of all the free media you're going to get. And when you join Toastmasters, you'll be able to put it across so much more effectively. So I think that brings me to the end of everything that I wanted to put across. Just to recap, the big thing, candidates. The more candidates we have, the better it is, the better your county party is going to be, the better it's going to be for the signature requirements. Come to the state convention on February 22nd. Nominate somebody for governor, me, somebody else, whoever it is, but be there to show up. And if you're running, maybe you could get nominated yourself and give your first practice speech there.
It's in Bethlehem?
Yes.
That's cool.
That's
When did you say that was?
February 22nd, the last Saturday in February, and it's an all-day affair. And if you come the night before and stay the night after, Montgomery County always has a hospitality suite there. This will be our 18th year. I think it was
1995.
Yeah, it goes way, way back. But, so be there. So there's the 3 things. Get some candidates, come to the convention, join Toastmasters. They're the 3 main things that I want to talk to you about. That and practice my stump speech and get your feedback. So with that, I'll open up the floor. Questions on any subject, any issue, anything you want to talk about?
But I might make a suggestion, if you're going to start with welfare, frame it out as corporate welfare. It's going to help the people that oppose the libertarians or think because we're against people start with corporate welfare and work it back to the personal welfare. I mean, it's a generalization.
With all due respect, let me say no.
Okay.
Because the theme of this book is the answer to the welfare state. As I said before, 80% of Pennsylvania's budget goes to giveaway programs, 60% of the federal budget. Let me give you the numbers at the federal level. People tend to pay more attention to federal than the state, which is, I'm a state guy. I don't really pay much attention to federal. But let's talk about federal for a minute. Right now, the budget is about $3.5 trillion. The cost of the welfare state is $2.2 trillion. More than half of it, 60%, like I said. But do you know what federal revenues are? $2.3 trillion. Yep. Virtually every dollar of federal revenue right now is being sucked up by the welfare state. And everything else, cost of the White House, defense, Amtrak, NASA, all that money's borrowed. And the cost of the welfare state is growing.
I didn't mean to say in the sense of just
Let me
Oh,
finish.
I'm sorry.
Let me finish.
Go ahead. Sorry.
There's a debt bomb ticking, and it's going to blow up at some point. What I'm proposing, and what the theme of my novel is a new political concept. I call it the separation of society and state. What we need to do is take all these societal functions, whether it's a retirement plan, whether it's cheap medical drugs, whether it's medical care for people who don't have insurance, whatever it is, take all these things that are not part of the Constitution and move them out to society where they properly belong. Now, society isn't just a collection of people. I'm talking about an actual, real, live entity. And the framework for society is going to be the same Constitution that we use now. So at the federal level, there'll be a federal society which uses the federal Constitution. So there'll be a president of society, senators in society, House of Representatives in society. At the state level, there'll be a governor of society, and again, a house. At the local level, there'll be a mayor of society with a town council of society. And instead of passing, well, let me back up a second. The main difference between society and government is that society does not have the coercive power of taxation. In fact, society has no coercive powers at all. Anything they want to fund, they can pass any kind of laws they want. I call them guidelines because they're not really laws. They can pass any guidelines they want. They can say, yeah, we're going to have soup kitchens. But instead of garnishing your wages to pay for it, they're going to have to ask for contributions. Hold a bake sale. Things like that. Lottery, or just people who believe in helping other people will be happy to contribute to it. Americans give more money to charity than anybody else on the planet. We're a very giving people. What I'd like to do is come up with an organized entity, call it society, where people can now do that. And if society doesn't have enough money to pay for everything, they're going to have to tighten their belts. Either they're going to have to put 2 people in a room. Do you have a private room? When you were in the hospital, do you have a private room?
Yeah,
he had to be zipped up in a veil bed.
Well,
yeah,
bad example.
It was dangerous. It was dangerous.
Well, the point is, if they can't afford to have private rooms for everybody, then they're going to have to tighten their belt and do 2 apiece. If they don't have enough money, well, the library is going to have to not buy as many new books this year. Whatever it's going to be. So by separating society and state, we now take this bottomless pit called your pocket that they're taking money out for their charity, and we're moving it over to society where it all becomes voluntary. And not only would charity become voluntary and administered by society, also so would standards, whether it would be cleanliness standards for restaurants, like this place, building codes, and again, they would be voluntary because there's no coercive powers. A business can say, yes, I know that there's a standard that says you have to have a certain level of cleanliness. We meet society's standards. And it says it proudly on the front. Approved by society. But then if society has some standard saying, oh no, you can't have cigarette smoking in there. It's like, don't tell me what I can do at my restaurant. If I went smoking, I was smoking in there. So society will say, societally approved, except we allow smoking. So that way, you, the property owner, can decide whether or not you want to patronize a given business. So if your bank has fiat currency and is practicing fractional reserve banking, you can say, I'm not going there. Instead, you can go to another bank, which is not FDIC approved, who may deal only in Bitcoin or only in silver rounds or whatever it may be. You choose. And society is only there as a standard guide. So, separation of society and state, we can take that 80% of Pennsylvania budget, move it outside, take it out of your taxes. So your taxes can be cut 80% right off the top. That's the idea here. And there's a lot more than that in here too. So I'm not presenting a corporate welfare. In fact, corporations be the first ones to
I'm just
come
saying,
forward.
when we're talking to people, you think of Bob Trump, okay? You think of libertarians that have been involved for 25 years that are more on the eco-left, or that, you know, they have their issues of fracking and stuff. I'm just saying, when you're speaking, people automatically think as libertarians, when we talk about welfare, that we're kicking people out on the street, but we're not. And if we phrase it at first, corporate welfare, and we're peeling the layers of the onion back all the way through, but McDonald's gets tons of corporate welfare, Burger King gets tons of corporate welfare. They don't need it. So we're not just thinking poor black, poor white, poor single. You know, when we speak from, again, how our words are construed.
And I agree with that.
So that's all I was saying.
Well, think of if we took this welfare and transferred it to society. Well, if McDonald's came looking for welfare, it's going to be the other way around. Society would be going to McDonald's.
Raise
say,
your prices.
Can you fund your Ronald McDonald House for another year?
Yeah.
Or or raise your prices or whatever it is.
And here's another side question, because I think it's a pretty, the fracking issue. Now, I know as libertarians we respect property rights, and our Constitution has about the communal good, but we are actually kind of creating eco-terrorism by injecting tons of stuff into our earth to get energy, which we're exporting, meanwhile polluting our natural resource of water.
I would disagree with the way you're phrasing that, because there's
I'm not running for office.
All right.
I'm coming as a guy that you're going to try to get my vote for.
Well,
you're going to try to get Bob Trump on your bandwagon versus supporting somebody else.
Well, let me talk about fracking for a minute. Right now, we're sitting on a gold mine here in Pennsylvania. I don't know if you've been up in the Mansfield, Wellsboro area lately, but it is hopping up there. I mean, they're dying for just truck drivers. So the economic impact that fracking is having on Pennsylvania is tremendous, and it's positive. But, like you say, we don't want to wind up causing ourselves more problems. So the first thing I would like to do is change the way that we look at protecting the environment. Right now, they have tons and tons and tons of regulations. You can have 0.002% of hairs in your bologna, or whatever it may be. They've taken it to the point now where it is just over-regulated. What I'd like to see is just simplify the whole thing. And I would treat any kind of pollution as a trespass. So if what you have is leaking onto my property, I can now take all the remedies against trespass and use those against you. Get off my property. Get your junk off my property. Clean it up. That's the basic idea, to start treating pollution as a trespass. And not just things that are leaking in, but Ohio blowing in their acid rain, neighbor whose light is shining in your window or has a loud stereo. All those things are the same kind of pollution. All of them could be treated as a trespass. And you can get an injunction in the courts shutting them down. So that's how I would come at, generally speaking, the pollution question. Now, when you look at fracking in particular, when somebody says, like, you're putting pollutants underground, well, you know, first of all, they're about a mile or two underneath the water table.
Consequential.
So, and the largest crack that a frack has made is like 1,800 feet. So the odds of the fracking causing any damage to the water table are very low. The only place it could happen is in drilling. And what we need to do is set drilling standards. And that's it. And then when things start leaking, then we treat it as a trespass and we can shut them down.
I think part of the other thing, too, though, from what I've heard with the libertarian perspective, might be of eliminating government limiting liability to corporations, where the government is doing that for corporations, so then all of a sudden they're not liable for the pollution or the long-term damage of what's being done. Because,
yes, I agree. And
and we should be focusing as libertarians on renewable energy that's from the farmers' fields versus pulling it all from our underground thing and then filling crap up down there.
Sean, it's not my job to tell you how to run your fields.
No, I understand. I understand.
You have the right to live your life your way as long as you're respecting that right in others.
Right.
Now, if you're not damaging the environment, you can do what you want. If you're doing something that somebody may say, oh, I don't like the sight of your oil rig or whatever it is. Well, you're not damaging anybody at that point.
No, I'm with you, Ken. I'm just
not
thinking
gonna-
how
I'm
you're
not gonna
going to
tell-
appeal to
I'm not going
those
to tell other
voters.
people that how to do this.
Yeah, appeal to those voters that you're going to run into the anti-frackers in a big way. That
Already have.
Yeah, okay.
But when you tell them, first of all, what they're pulling out from 2 miles under the earth, that's already a pollutant. It's oil, it's shale, it's natural gas. It's already a pollutant.
Could be
So-
a lubrication to the world. Who knows? I mean,
I'm sorry?
could it be a lubrication to,
Makes the world go round.
keeps the world together? Who knows?
Sure.
With that, you know what I mean? It's an organism, so who knows? I'm just saying again, where we persuade people, the options of renewable energy, reduce the restrictions so our farmers
Well,
can look at chemergy versus.
I challenge the idea that government is smart enough to know which renewable resources are correct.
I'm with you too,
Back-
dude.
back
And
in
that goes
19
back to
the
welfare,
market is
subsidizing gas companies, which we shouldn't be subsidizing gas companies, but
I agree.
national security interest
I
makes
agree.
us,
No, this
that's
state office. We're not
that's the
talking
attitude.
national
Yeah,
security
no, I
here.
understand.
Talk about state security. Keep New Jersey out, right?
Yeah.
Jersey.
Jersey's pretty good. You mentioned corporations. Corporations, you're right. They have unlimited
Carte blanche, dude.
liability, no liability at all. I would like to see corporations eliminated because they're legal fictions.
But I mean-
Incorporeal beings.
But you could revoke their charters if they have hurt, which again.
I would just like to eliminate them completely. But yes, you
But I
can.
think-
You can take action against them if they're trespassing with their pollutants.
And if you bring that, I guess part of my point is if you bring that up, you're going to bring some of these other people on board that are so anti-fracking or anti-whatever to say about this corporate personhood, eliminate corporations, and may give you a plus versus
Yep.
not answering their question the way they
Yep.
want to hear it or something.
Okay.
Is that one of the themes that is driving the gubernatorial elections? The fracking, is that a big thing?
That's a hot button
It's
right now.
in
It's
some
money.
areas
It's
it's
money.
very hot.
Yeah, people are getting
You
money
get,
from it.
you get up in further in central Pennsylvania. I'm surprised. You guys are still, and ladies, are still in that fracking range, aren't you? Don't you have fracking down here?
No.
Because we have it.
Nope.
We have it outside of Philadelphia
Not
too.
here. It kind of loops
They,
right around us.
they just banned it in Dallas, Texas, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, where they won't let them do it in Dallas. I mean, the whole
Great news for
Texas is
Pennsylvania.
fracked. I don't know. I mean, who's profiting?
As long as a lot of the regular people. Are
Well,
profiting.
isn't the issue whether they're taxing the frackers, or isn't that the issue?
Well, it's one of the issues. I would not tax frackers.
Right, Corbett isn't either, but I'm saying,
Well,
what's not the issue?
I was up in Sunbury, which is about 60, 70 miles north of Harrisburg. I was there a couple weeks ago, and it's really, really hot there. There's one fracking company they just took over an empty industrial site right by the river, and they're moving dirt in there. It is now 6 feet higher than it was a year ago. And nobody knows what the dirt is, what's in the dirt, and the neighbors across the street, they're concerned. They're very concerned. The guy who owns the corporation that's doing this, he's a friend of Corbett's. He gave like $75,000 to Corbett in the last election. And now we've got this guy here. I mean, I don't want to say bad things about Tom Corbett. I'm just saying these are the facts that I know. And it looks like he's in bed with a lot of these frackers. I can understand that he doesn't want to have them taxed. But he doesn't want to tax them because they're his buddies. Me, I don't want to tax them because I'm a libertarian. I think taxation is theft, plain and simple.
But they are taking natural resources underneath Pennsylvania, which
No,
we don't own allodial land
they're
rights.
taking it out from underneath private land.
Right, and we don't
It's
own
not-
those allodial land rights. I mean, so
No, whoever. I
They
know people
volunteered
just
to
north of my
extract it,
house who sign contracts with the
Yeah.
frackers saying you can frack under my property.
sure.
That's what it all is. It's not
It
like.
may not be a low deal, but that doesn't matter. If they have
Correct.
title to the property, whether it's a low deal or not,
That's
it's
right.
me.
Allodial
Please.
doesn't enter into the question.
I'm sorry?
But
Yeah, but they're-
it's not. You can't say Pennsylvania's not doing it. Pennsylvania it's a fiction. It doesn't exist.
What?
The individual landowners in Pennsylvania are permitting it.
Yeah, because everyone's desperate because they can't have other ways of making money, so they're they're going to this thing of.
That's true.
So I'm
That's
just
true,
saying
too.
you're going to have.
It's a cornucopia. We just have to make sure that friends of politicians don't get a free ride. That anybody who pollutes,
They're
we treat it as a
responsible for all
trespass.
that white wastewater, all that shit that's pumped down there and then extracted out and put somewhere.
Correct. And if we get end the corporations, then individuals would be responsible. You know, you look at the BP oil spill, nobody went to jail for that.
No.
The Exxon Valdez spill up in Alaska, nobody went to jail for that either. Have a couple $1 billion, go away.
There's transatlantic pipelines that are opening up there, Canada and over in the South Dakota, where they've had breaks and accidents and
That's true.
gallons and gallons of stuff spilling out. They didn't even know
As
about
long
it.
as they can take care of it, fix it.
Yeah.
But nobody's against the Beverly Hillbillies. Getting
That's
rich off of-
right.
off of the oil underneath their property.
Yeah, especially when it's pushing its way through. And yeah, I guess the whole thing is it's quick bucks. The money isn't worth really anything, you know, but people need to do something. And then 20 years later down the road, I'm paying $7 a gallon for water that's being purified versus getting my clean, natural water. I mean,
I would be careful about saying how much it costs in terms of dollars a gallon.
oh, whatever it
I have
is,
a-
it's
I have a 70
inconsequential. I mean,
I have a 72 Plymouth Fury, big muscle car, back in the days they made real cars. Well, back then, silver quarters still circulated. And gas back then was about 25 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Well, today, we don't have silver quarters. We have that circus money that they hand around. But if you take that quarter today, you know what it's worth?
one soft
It's
pretzel.
worth about $4
Yeah.
with the silver in it. So the price of gas is actually cheaper right now than it was when my 72 Fury was brand new. What has changed is the value of your dollar
Yeah.
has plummeted. So when you say water's going to be $7 a gallon
In Federal Reserve.
in Federal Reserve,
Yeah,
that's not
I know.
money.
We were trading at the Freedom Festival pretzels for a silver quarter or 2 dimes.
This is money, silver. This would buy 4 gallons of gas back then. That's right.
There's
You can
one
tell
and a
we're
half.
libertarians, right? This would buy 4 gallons of gas back in 1972. It'll buy you 4 gallons of gas, 5 gallons of gas today.
The wild thing is this is only $19 an ounce right at the moment still. I mean, it's dropped still. It's crazy.
I know.
It should be $50 an ounce.
Kinda. Here's my question, Sean. Where am I going to pick it up for $19 an ounce?
Steinmetz, $2.50
all
over
the
spot.
place
You
you can
go
buy
there.
it for $19.
Yeah.
But they only do rounds. They don't do anything smaller anymore.
Okay, because there's when you're going out to Lidditz Pike, Security Rare Coins in the little shopping center by Giant.
Yeah. Willow Street also has the same thing.
Yeah.
Darren Camps.
Do you know what?
What I'm trying
Why
to
don't, you,
figure.
why don't you put that on the agenda for your meeting on the 3rd Wednesday of January?
What's that?
Somebody come back with research saying, here are the best places where you can buy silver rounds.
We can do that on the
No,
internet.
Not meaning to cut you off here, but
no,
I'm trying to stay on
Yeah,
top.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my
Go ahead.
fault.
Sorry, my
fault.
bad too.
Next question.
All right, I'll take a shot.
Go for it.
You stated that you support mandatory life sentences, no parole for violent criminals.
I did not say
He
that.
didn't say that.
What did you say?
I said I would not parole violent criminals.
Okay.
I don't set the sentences.
You don't set the
It's up to the
sentences, you
judicial
don't parole.
branch
In
to
other
do
words,
that.
they complete their
They complete
sentence.
their sentence. But if someone is given a life sentence, they will
If
not.
somebody's given a life sentence, it's a life
It's a
sentence.
life
Well, unless there's been some crap going on like they did in Western Pennsylvania.
That's
Judges,
true.
so
That's
as long as they had
always
proper
true.
jurisprudence, not
Correct.
jurisprudence, but there was a proper trial. They weren't framed.
Correct. That's what I said. A real trial,
Yeah.
with a real
But
conviction
that's different. No,
in front of a real
right,
judge.
an overturn of the conviction is different from a parole. I think all
So we don't get off on a tangent. What do you need from us?
Well, I already told you what I needed. I need candidates.
Candidates?
I need you.
take,
I need you to take off on primary
be
day
at
so
the
we can
state
collect
convention
signatures.
and join the Toastmasters.
And I need you to join Toastmasters. And you're going to be, fourth thing, you're going to be here on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. First of all, you're going to find out about where to buy silver. You're going to have your candidates. You're going to start talking about how you're going to... Don't tell me no. This is... We have
Hey, you're coming
self-government.
outside here. You don't know what's going on here.
We have self-government in this country. That means you've got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sound bites, I have lots of sound bites, but my favorite is the mantra of the grassroots activist. It's real easy to remember. 10 words, 2 letters apiece. If it is to be, it is up to us.
Make it so, number 1.
Make it so. That's right. You are the ones that have to do this. See, I'm out here on the road now trying to get the libertarians together. We're going to have a huge event on primary day. The only reason it's going to happen is because I got in my car and drove out here to say hello to everybody. We're going to have people in the debates next year. I'm going to be back there on national TV doing my dollar bill thing. Who's seen my dollar bill trick? Oh, I got to do it.
So on C-SPAN.
Ed Rendell said this. It was during the second debate, and he said, "We're going to get more federal dollars, and that's what we need. We need more federal dollars to pay for things." And I was next. I said, Ed, do you know what happens when you send $1 to Washington? The first thing that happens is most of that dollar vanishes in their bureaucracy. And this is what comes back to
And
the
they
state.
freaked out.
But the state, they have their own bureaucracy too. And this is what winds up getting spent. You're lucky if you get a dime on the dollar for what you sent to the feds. And then, instead of going to where it needs to go, they play politics with your money. It goes to their buddies. The worst thing you could possibly do is have the money laundered through the feds. Think of it this way. If you helped charities local, gave them $1, you could help 10 times as many people. That's how inefficient government is. Now, when I did that in the debate, Mike Fisher, the Republican, went ballistic. He said, oh, Ken's tearing up dollar bills.
That's a federal crime.
He actually called the Secret Service. This is when they had that DC sniper who was shooting people out of the trunk of his car. And he's bothering the civil service, the
Secret Service.
thank you, asking them, oh, is Ken allowed to tear up dollar bills? Of course I am. I came over here to York, to Carl Spangler. He runs Central Family Diner.
Such a family restaurant.
Yeah. And I went there, and I taped up. I held my own press conference right after Mike Fisher's. And I taped up a couple dollar bills, and I bought my lunch with it. And there were TV crews there, and they're interviewing Carl saying, Carl, did you take that $200 bill? He says, yeah, I get torn up money all the time. What's the big deal? My Republican buddy of mine was furious with Mike Fisher. He says, that man gave you $100,000 worth of free advertising. See, but when you're the candidate, you can do this kind of stuff. And when you're a Toastmaster, you learn how to use props.
Yeah, 2 for 1 penny.
Don't think I have any pennies.
Sorry.
I got a checklist.
You wouldn't give.
Number 1, join the National Libertarian Party. Number 2, if you aren't already,
Oh,
join the
well,
State
in that case,
Libertarian
I'll
Party
put
if you aren't
my
already.
credit card.
Number 3, register Libertarian if you're not already registered Libertarian. Number 4, vote Libertarian instead of wimping out on this lesser of two evils because you got Tweedledee and Tweedle-R. They're the same thing, so that's the waste of your vote. I hope you all agree that Ken's a guy that you can certainly give your vote to for governor next year when he runs. Be sure to let me know if you can come to the meeting with Smucker, January 9th. And remember the date, May 20th, because we're going to be out collecting anybody that is willing at a polling place, collecting signatures for our state and local candidates.
Yep. And if you go to the busiest polling places, you